Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the podcast. And if you are watching this live stream in the Ayurveda and Women's Health Sisterhood community, a big welcome there too. We love you guys tuning in live. It is so much fun to be able to continue these conversations after the podcast as well. And today I'm so excited. And I know I say that every time because I am really passionate about Ayurveda and women's health, but I really am super excited because this is going to help you guys so much on your journey. And I want to share a little story with how I came to inviting this amazing guest, Ritika Flow, onto the podcast. We will be talking about cosmic insights, a Vedic astrology perspective of your life and how it can personally help you. But first of all, I was going through like a few little mindset struggles in my business, and I was driving down to a yoga class and I'm thinking, you know what, I really need to tap back into Vedic astrology. I know every time that I have seen a Vedic astrologist, it's just been so empowering for me. And I was driving there, did the yoga class, then met up with a friend straight after. And she was like, oh my God, I just had like the best session with a Vedic astrologist. I know you told me to go and see one when I was in Bali, but I didn't get the chance. And I was like, no way, I've been thinking about connecting with one. And she's like, you've got to go. So I did, connected with his Vedic astrologist. She's amazing. And I was like, you have to come and share your wisdom with my world as well. So today we have Ritika Flow, who is a Master Sattva teacher, a Jyotish Vedic astrologist, and a lifelong student of the ancient Tantric practices, including breathwork and Kriya. No matter the circumstances, the trauma endured, the story of one's life, Ritika can teach you to embody these teachings to shift your energy and employ your life force to awaken to the highest potential of your life. So welcome to the podcast, Ritika.
Thank you very much for having me. Namaste, everyone. So
Namaste.
Excited to teach you, to talk about my most favorite subject in the world, Vedic astrology. Yes, so great.
It is so beautiful. And what I love is there's kind of like three branches in these Vedic sciences. And we've got Ayurveda as one of those. We've got yoga as another, and the Jyotish Vedic astrology as another. And that is the one that I know the least amount, but I'm so intrigued by. So let's dive in. But before we get into the Jyotish astrology aspect of the podcast, I do want to ask you a few rapid inspiration questions just so that the audience gets to know you a little better. So my first one to you is there anything that is unconventional on your bucket list?
Oh, bucket list. I threw out the bucket a long time ago, but it seems like as you become start to live a life of alignment, as soon as the desire arises for something, it gets fulfilled. It's an amazing way to live life. I'm 50 years old now, and I've already lived in 3 different countries, and I absolutely love the wide, big experience of life I've had. Only thing that I have not been able to do, that I really want to do, because now I'm a mother and I need to be more present with my child, is I would love to go to the Himalayas on a motorcycle with my husband. And that is one thing that is just in the near future, just not here yet. But yes, I would love to travel those roads in the high passes of the Himalayas.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you will. I'm sure you will. And what is
Yes.
your favorite food?
My favorite food. Oh, I am a foodie. I definitely like Indian food. That is my favorite.
Yeah.
And within that, I love the South Indian cuisine. I think it's the most balanced and the most delicious, and spicy. And anything spicy is good. But yes, I love South Indian food.
Absolutely. Yes, I love a good Indian feed myself. Now, let's dive into the topic of cosmic insights through Vedic astrology. So, let's start by explaining what is Vedic Jyotish astrology and how does it offer insights into our lives that may differ from Western astrology?
It's not that it differs from Western astrology. First of all, Western astrology uses a different zodiac. So they use something that they call the tropical zodiac, where they superimpose the idea of March 21st being the day of the equinox and sun going into Aries. That happened back in 247 AD. But now Vedic astrology uses the sidereal zodiac, which is a much more astronomically accurate zodiac. So, and since the Earth wobbles on its axis 1 degree every 72 years, that wobble sidereal zodiac takes that into account. So that difference over the last 2000 years is now accounted for about 24-degree difference between what the Western astrology is saying and what the astronomically nowadays we have these star view apps on our phone. We can see it, and the whole world is talking about the just gone full moon was in Pisces, I think they were saying, or no, they were saying Aquarius, but the new moon, but it was actually in the sign of Capricorn. So but now you can put the star view app and look at the sky and say, okay, yeah, I can see that the moon is in Capricorn. It shows you the zodiac. It shows you. So it gives you a much more deeper insight than Western astrology as well. They have a much more detail. They don't just stay at the level of the zodiac. Each zodiac sign is 30-degree area of the sky, but behind that there's smaller constellations that give a much deeper, keener insight into, let's say, if your moon is in Libra, two people with Libra moon can be very different. So how do we account for that difference? That is based on your nakshatra, these smaller constellations behind the bigger constellation that really pinpoint what kind of a Libra moon you are. So within that, so it just dials in. It's a much more detailed experience, insight through Vedic astrology.
So you mentioned the wobble in the earth, which has changed how the Western astrology sees the planets, or is what they're talking about. So if they're giving generic readings, are they sort of not so accurate then? Because as you mentioned, there's like the apps where you can see the actual planetary alignment. So would the readings that they're dictating from the planets be not accurate to the time and date that they're specifically saying?
I mean, I know in my personal experience, many people, even Western astrologers, have come to have a reading, and then I've told them, actually, you're not a Scorpio moon, you're a Sagittarius, or you're not a Sagittarius moon, you're a Scorpio moon. And then they're like, oh my God, all my life, I did not resonate with that. And I had to force myself to believe that I am a Sagittarius moon. And the difference between a Sag moon and a Scorpio moon is night and day. So you're like, she was so disconnected with this idea, and she herself was an astrologer. So when I told her, it was like a permission to breathe, like, okay, I am a Scorpio moon, and you can go into working with yourself and understanding yourself deeper. So I don't know, I don't want to be controversial, but this is how it is. In my opinion, it is more like the app that I use, funnily enough, is called Cosmic Insights. And Cosmic Insight app is designed by a NASA astronomer. So it is a very accurate, astronomically accurate Vedic astrology app that I use.
Amazing. And I found that true for myself as well. In Western astrology, I've always been a Pisces, but also Pisces they go off the star sign, whereas the Vedic astrology goes off the moon sign. But my moon sign was different as well. So yeah, I find it super interesting. And I think that's why I've always aligned with the Vedic astrology, because it just seems so, as you mentioned, like accurate, but it's so much more deeper. Like anything from the Vedas is. So how does Vedic Jyotish view the concepts of destiny, and how can understanding one's astrology chart empower them to navigate their path?
So when we look at a Vedic astrology chart, that shows the snapshot of the sky in that moment, and it can show. And why do we get this snapshot of the planets? Why were the planets aligned in exactly that way when you were born? Is that moment, when your date of birth, your time of birth, and your place of birth combined, and the soul descends into the body. Then all the karmic burden of the load from the previous lifetime gets downloaded into this moment. So that's what bases your entry into the world. So all the karmas, all the arrows that have been shot in the past have an equal and opposite reaction. They're coming back. So that's your destiny. However, in Vedic astrology, my teacher says never ever be just an astrologer. Be a yogi first. You have to understand. You have to be a yogi first, because ultimately the best remedy for any astrological karmic destiny that you think that something bad is going to happen, ultimately first remedy is your state of consciousness. So this is where free will comes into place. Now, whenever I do reading, I always convey the lower aspect and the higher aspect of each zodiac sign and each planet. So for example, Scorpio moon, let's say, Scorpio moon is considered to be the debilitated position for the moon. So now what that means is moon is your mind, moon is your emotional intellect. And when you, deeply emotional person, Scorpio person is a deeply emotional person, but when it goes in, moon goes there, it becomes a very secretive person, very tries to hide what they're feeling. They're like a still lake. You don't know what's going on underneath that still lake. And that is a big place of suffering if that's where you're living, because you're always trying to protect yourself from the world. The world is somehow going to be the cause of suffering for you. So you're always protecting yourself. However, when you understand the higher aspect, which is a deeply, deeply research-minded person, a person who wants to know things from the root, a person who is really deeply interested in the mysticism, because the Scorpio is also the sign of mysticism, occult, anything that you have to dig into, something that is not available to you on the surface. You really have to dive deep into that knowledge. Now that expression of Scorpio moon can become very different. Now they can allow themselves to be charmed by something like astrology. They can be very good astrologers, Scorpio moon, because they can really dig into a chart. So they can, through their free will, through their practice, through their understanding, refine that energy of Scorpio moon. So that is how I feel you're not bound by destiny. You're not bound by what is going to happen. Yes, there is a framework, potential for what is going to happen. The potential is there, but how do you perceive that? And what do you do in order to avoid that? What that means is you can see the arrows are coming. You can watch them. I can see. You can intuitively feel like, oh, something is going to happen. As an intelligent person, you will move so that the arrows don't hit you. In this movement is what we call Kriya. This movement, Kriya, is evolutionary action that releases us from the burden of our karmas. So what evolutionary action you take is many different ways. You can do mantra, you can do seva. Seva means selfless service. You can do just correcting the intellect is a great way of doing that kriya. And of course, breath work, very foundational. So
Absolutely.
we're not at the mercy of our destiny. In India, there's a big, almost like anybody, oh, this is just my karma. It's just my karma. But you're not bound by your karma. Karma exists within the field of your awareness. So if you expand your awareness, if you lift your energy, your consciousness state, then what you experience even changes. You understand?
Absolutely. And I think that's so important for people to know, like, people can go and get their chart read and then be really freaked out by what their chart says, or even those people who go and seek guidance from clairvoyants, and then they're told, this is what's going to happen in the future. And then it can completely disrail their whole journey because they're so caught up in, what they were told by an external sort of person or chart or whatever. So
and then they manifest it. The fear
Yeah.
fear of that will then manifest that in their life. I can tell you from my own personal experience. I had a Vedic astrology reading. I had a Siddha doctor in South India. They are really different way of tapping into the Vedic astrology, but he told me, he held my hand for a moment, and then he told me everything about me, which was unbelievable. And then he said something really bad is going to happen. I'm like, whoa, what's going to happen? He's like, you need to do this, you need to drink this. He put the fear of God into me, and I was like, oh. And I'm like, I was booked to go to Thailand the next day, and so I said, I'm not gonna change my flight. I'm gonna go to Thailand. I'll be there for. I was going for a detox. I'll do that, and then if I need, I come back. And I went to Thailand to this place, and where I was staying, there was this guy who was coming there every day, all dressed in white. And I asked him one day, I said, what do you do when you sit here on your computer? He's like, I'm a Vedic astrologer. So I said, can you do my reading? And he said the same thing. Same thing. He said, something really bad is going to happen. I said, what do you mean? He's like, I see burning, I see isolation, I see hospital. And I'm like, what should I do? He said, if I was you, Ma, I would pray a lot. I was,
Oh my
I was
God.
not in fear. I was like, oh my God. So I called my teacher, Anand, and I called him and I said, oh my God, what's going on? And then he looked at my chart. Now, this is the state of consciousness. He looked at my chart and he didn't deny it. Okay. He said, I see what they're saying, how the planets are aligning. I see what they're saying. However, the first thing is to not go into fear, because fear is not, this is a time of transformation coming up, and you don't go into fear, because then you'll crumble under the mountain of fear. Right away, he gave me a mantra to chant, a very healing, strong, powerful mantra. I had to do, I mean, it was something massive coming up. So I had to do like 5 hours a day of this mantra. And fortunately, I had time in my life to do that at that time. So it was for 2 weeks. I had to do 28,000 rounds. And I chanted. But I have to say, the first time I chanted the mantra, I knew nothing was going to happen to me. I knew undoubtedly, because I found the right key. I found the right person to support me. And then what happened during that time, I got pregnant. And then when all this stuff about the hospital was going to manifest, I did end up going to the hospital, but I had a baby. So you understand how you can change the experience. You can change the experience. Some karma had to bring me to the hospital, but wow, I had the most exquisite experience in that hospital. So yes. And then so I believe in the power of the person reading your chart. First of all, should never ever put you in a state of fear. They should lift you up. They should inspire you to lift your energy up, so that you're not at the mercy of what's coming.
And I think that, you know, we are all here in this human existence as soul beings and human beings, but we are here to evolve and grow. And we do that through challenges and obstacles. So if a Vedic astrologist can point out, like, this may be a time where there may be some obstacles, but you can do it in a really, I guess, compassionate way. You can do it in a really, I don't want to say controlled way, because we can't control everything, but, you know, like, as in the mantra for you really helped. Well, it didn't end up turning into being an obstacle for you at all, but like for some people it could be a really beautiful transition through that obstacle to something greater, as opposed to letting that fear manifest and it turning into this upheaval of hecticness, because as you mentioned, you manifest that into it because you're constantly thinking these fear-based thoughts. We can't sort of heal, or we can't move forward from a disempowered state. We really need to be in an empowered state, and that really, like you said, oh gosh, I'm back. I've been kicked out of the studio again. Yes. Yes, it makes such a difference.
Yes, it really obstacle. I just wanted to say that, because it is not, it's the understanding is that the planets are not punitive. So planets are the keeper of our karma. They're not the creator of our karma. they're like the iCloud, when your phone you use, they're the cloud. When you drop this body, they keep the karmic information, the memory, and then when you take a new body, the memory downloads into the new body. And it's not that there are going to be obstacles. When people come to me for a reading, my first thing I tell them is, I'm not going to predict your future. I'm going to tell you what your present is asking. The present moment is the most important moment. If I can tell you in this moment, you are being asked to do this thing, it's time to go in. It's or for you, like when I did a reading for you, I told you it was time to go out. So it is really important to honor that when it's time to go in. Now, if you're going to push against it, you're going to be resistant against it, then challenges come. So if the nature is asking some particular expression from you, and you're rising up and meeting it, then there is no dissonance. Then you're in flow with life. There's no challenges, no obstacles. You're just meeting life where it wants you to meet it. That's the ultimate reason for Jyotish. So it is the eye of the Vedas, the light. You can see what's coming, what energy is coming, and then you appropriately show up. If there's going to be rain, you make sure you take an umbrella with you. Then there's no obstacle. The rain was coming, you found out, and then you're making the right decision to protect yourself from it.
I love that. It's all about the present moment, not predicting the future. And I think that's what a lot of people miss, because we really can only change the present, which will then, inherently change the future if need be. But yeah, definitely more about the present moment. And so I want to shift it a bit to talk about the fact that in Vedic astrology, the moon is considered a significant factor. So how does the moon's position in an individual's chart influence their emotions and daily life? Because I know in Western astrology, they always talk about the star sign as opposed to the moon sign.
So we have three most important signs that we look at. Your ascendant, the sign that was rising in the eastern horizon as you take your first breath in the body, that becomes your body. And sun sign, which is your soul, what are you here to really shine, put through into this world, bring through into this world. And moon, which is your mind. So soul, body, and mind. All three are very important. But moon, the whole science of Vedic astrology is around the moon, because not only, of course, it tells you your emotional well-being, because moon, so soul is the sun. So it's the light of the sun that is reflected by the moon. How much access do you have to your soul? Is your mind eclipsed by your ego? Then that it really reveals how much of that soul desire can you bring into this world. Secondly, it is relationship to your mother. Moon also represents the relationship to your mother. Your first relationship, whenever we look at somebody, and most people come to still have a reading with me because they want to know if they're going to have a relationship. So relationship is the seventh house is the relationship. Fourth house is the house of the mother. So fourth from the fourth is the seventh house. This is how in astrology we look at things. How is the health of the fourth house will determine the health of the seventh house. First, you have to have a relationship with your mother. How is that? And then it can also influence how you relate to other people. So that's another thing. And then the nakshatra of the moon. Now, the nakshatra of the moon, I'll reiterate, because it is that those behind the zodiac signs, there's 2.5 smaller constellations. These are called the lunar mansions or nakshatras. So where the moon was placed, which nakshatra will then start your life cycle. So we have this very important insight of Vedic astrology. What dasha, what planetary period are you running? So everybody who's born gets a 120-year cycle of life, which is broken down into different planetary periods, which is set in stone. But based on your moon nakshatra, you will start your life in a certain planetary period. And now this is a trajectory for your life. If you start your planetary period in Rahu Dasha, Rahu period, which is a very tumultuous period, and you come in as a child, that's karmic. That's karmic, because your household is going to be full of chaos. You're going to have lots of turbulence in your life just at that foundation years of your life. So you see how important moon becomes, just setting that
Yeah.
life's journey. However, if you come in sun period, here I am, I'm ready to shine my light. Or you come in a Jupiter period, very, very easy entrance into life. You can almost see from the Jupiter period. Obviously, ultimately depends on where the Jupiter is placed, but mostly if you enter life in Jupiter period, you're going to have great parents, you're going to have an easy, obstacle free life. So it's a very, very important insight of your whole life journey where the moon was placed.
Yeah. Beautiful. And so can you just briefly touch on the ascending and the importance of the ascending and the star as well in Jyotish astrology?
Ultimately, it has to be a synthesis. It has to be a synthesis. You look at the ascendant sign will determine what how your body looks like. First of all, if you don't know your exact time of birth, I can sometimes see in your body, because a person, it shows up in the body structure. Actually, it's your ego. It's where your whole life energy is going to be focused. So this is what the ascendant sign shows. So for example, I'm Cancer rising. So Cancer is an emotional person. So it's right away it shows a person who's very emotional. And Cancer people, you can generally tell how they're feeling all the because they wear their emotions on their sleeve, much different to a Scorpio rising. And then first thing we look at is where is moon placed, because Cancer is the sign of Cancer. It has a rulership of moon on it. So you have to connect that. So you look at where the moon is placed. That will show where my life energy in this life will be directed. Where am I going to put my full life force into? So in my case, my moon is placed in the 10th house, which is the house of career, which is the public house. So this brings into my life the energy of caretaking and nourishing and mothering, this kind of energy into my career. So first thing I did was pharmacy. I became a pharmacist, which is healing, nurturing. Very, very dissatisfied with myself when I was working. So I'm like, I can't do this anymore. So I stopped that. I started a wellness center. That's a little bit refined expression of that moon in the 10th house for a Cancer rising. And that was much better. And now I run a retreat center, and I do these kind of share these kind of teachings. And I'm really taking care of the people that come to my retreats. So you see how as I work on myself, my expression of that moon in the 10th house then starts to shift. The life also up levels as I up level.
Yeah, I so agree with that. And we've got not the same story, but similar, as in I started as a registered nurse and have changed the trajectory of my career to go more into like the Ayurvedic practices and also yoga teaching and all of those beautiful things. And it definitely, I think, as you ascend along your path, you evolve into this higher version of yourself or your higher self. You know where you're meant to be. I guess you have that feeling of like, this is it. Whereas when I was nursing, I'm appreciative that I really went down that path, but I always knew it wasn't, for me. I was there for a reason, but it wasn't for longevity. So yeah, that's beautiful.
But it's not a given that people are going to tune into their higher expression. You have to be willing to transcend. You have to be willing to let go. I mean, for me, I was getting paid so much as a pharmacist right out of university. It was a big decision that I just couldn't function anymore as a pharmacist. So I had to let it go without knowing if I was going to get somewhere else in my life. So that fear had to be transcended.
Yeah, so I think just to wrap it up, I would love, we've spoke about how it's not predicting future, but how can we understand one's astrology chart and helping them make informed decisions related to their career, relationships, or personal development? So we're not predicting the future for them, but how can they make better informed decisions to up-level themselves?
This is where the most important insight comes, is what planetary period you're running. So this woman came to me the other day and she was running, so it's the each planetary period is a long, like for example, Saturn is a 19-year long period. So within that, then the sub periods start to make more of an impact, because after the first 2 years you move into Saturn, you're really feeling the Saturn energy. However, after 2 years, then you start to get more impact from the sub periods. So she was in Saturn Ketu period. Both of those planets are really, really asking you to go in, to slow down, to start a spiritual practice, to meditate, to learn to meditate, all of these things. And she was a very social person, and so she did not have any access to these tools. She did not know like whether she should meditate. All she was saying is like, somehow I don't want to go out anymore, so maybe I'm getting depressed. She's like, I would force myself to go for a walk on the beach with my friend, and I always end up getting in some kind of a argument with my friends. And now all these friends were falling away from her life, and she started to feel like she was getting really depressed, and she would maybe need to get antidepressants, or something was going on. However, she came to me and I told her, hey, this 1 year of your life is really asking you to not be social. And she literally started crying. She's like, all I want to do is stay at home. But because she had not been like that before, she couldn't understand what was happening. And I bet you anything, if she'd gone to see a psychiatrist or a doctor, they would have probably prescribed her some medicine. However, when I told her, she was able to relax into it and honor that intuitively, that she was being guided, and she made time for herself. She did practice. We practiced some kriyas together, and then she was able to navigate that. And after Saturn Ketu comes Saturn Venus, again wanting you to come out, share. It's a beautiful design of a very intelligent design, how we are asked to come in and go out. So then she was able to then come out again, very, without having numbed herself.
Beautiful.
So
And it
very,
really connects. Yeah, amazing. And it really connects us with, the force of nature and how we're meant to be. We are part of nature. We're not separate from it. But through our modern living, we often separate ourselves and we get on with our day-to-day life, and we don't ever sort of pivot or change, depending, even like, our hormones play a huge role in that, but we just keep going through it, like keep going day in, day out, day in, day out. So I guess it just gives you that permission, like you did for your client, and that guidance to where you really need to connect to self and to nature. And well, I mean, it's the planets that are helping us do that, right? Showing where we're meant to be. So thank you
all the
so
time.
much. Yeah.
Yes.
It has been, you're so full of wisdom. I just love, I could talk to you about this for ages. After our session, I was like, wow, what can I get? I need to know more about this. So I'm really, really intrigued to learn more. But you do run a few courses, you do private readings for people. So where can we direct people who are interested in getting to know more about Vedic astrology chart reading from yourself, and also just discuss a little bit about because you do some yoga teacher training programs as well, don't you?
Yes, we're currently in the process of doing our yoga teacher training, where we teach people about. So this is not a yoga teacher training. I mean, literally every person who joined this yoga teacher training was like, I'm not going to be a yoga teacher. I just want more understand what I'm feeling, because it's the kriyas. We teach 50% of the training is yoga asana, and the rest of it is kriya and mantra and ishtas and all of that beautiful, wonderful knowledge that comes from directly from the Himalayas. So we teach that. And if you want to have more information, you can go to Ritika Flow, ritikaflow.com. That's my website. I'm also on Instagram. We live in the time of technology, and it's really important. My teacher says, as much as I don't want to be, and I'm not a person who likes to scroll on social media, but it is time of technology, and our voices need to be in that field. So it's not only the negative voices. So I'm definitely there as Ritika Flow. and it's Ritika Flow, Ritika Flow. So yeah, you can book from there. One of the programs that I find that I offer and works the most best for, in my opinion, I see the change in the people, is it's my mentorship, one-on-one mentorship, where I do a reading on the first session, and then we meet every week. So the first week we'll meet, and I will design a kriya set, which is different breath works that we modalities that we do, and in based on the chart, what remedy you need. So one woman just came and her heart was really shut, so we did the first practice was to a heart opening set. So we record that, she practices it on her own for a week, and then we meet, and the next week I don't meet the same person. It is exactly, every time I've seen that within a week there is such a big change. And then she came in the next week and she was a different person. Now we have a conversation, and then we create another set, and then she practices that for another week. So by the time you leave, you are a different person, and I really love watching the transformation as well. So I yeah, that's my favorite thing to do.
That's beautiful.
Sure.
Well, thank you so much once again. I will pop your links in the show notes. So anyone who would love to go and get their chart read and learn more about yourself through the Vedic astrology, then please reach out to Ritika, as you have witnessed, either tuning in from the live stream or listening to the podcast. She's such a beautiful soul, and she can really guide you on your path in this lifetime. So please reach out to her. And if you loved this episode, please give us a shout out on Instagram. We're both on there, as we said. So let's spread this wisdom near, far, and wide. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate. Bye.